to another AK Ghost ASMR video. Today's video, we are going to be discussing the Burari deaths. This was also a 3-part documentary on Netflix. You can also watch. It's actually really interesting. So the article that I'm going to be reading is by Himani Bandri. So let's get right into the video. Burari deaths, 11 bright people with one dark secret. The Chandwats were like any other middle-class family, settled and focused on a better future, till a death in 2007 shook them up, while those who saw the family from the outside felt they had found solace in spirituality. What happened inside the four walls of the Burari house may never be known, as there is no one left to explain. Alright. Quote, "In my career of 17 years so far, I have never seen a crime scene like this, and I hope I do not ever have to," end quote, said Head Constable Rajiv Tumar, the first policeman to enter the Burari house, where 11 members of the Chhandwat family were found dead on the morning of July 1st. He is Burari's beat officer who reached the house at 7:18 a.m. a few minutes after a PCR, which stands for Police Control Room, call was made. He pushed a few people, crowding the narrow lane, and took the steps leading to the scene of the crime. Just so you guys understand what it's like in New Delhi, so you can picture the scene. It's in New Delhi. It's like little mini apartments, all like crowded together in what they call like gullies, which are like alleys. So it's super crowded there. Everybody knows pretty much everybody in India and like New Delhi in those areas. Like it's pretty like warm and like family oriented, so you understand, like get a picture of how it is. Anyways, back to the article. Quote, "It was shocking. I stayed only for 10 to 15 seconds before rushing downstairs to call my seniors. At the time, I did not see whose hands were tied and whose eyes were covered. I just saw a lot of bodies hanging, just like branches of a tree," end quote, Mr. Tumar recalled. On the first floor of the house, the bodies of Bhavnesh Singh, his brother Lalit Singh, their wives Savita and Tina respectively, their children Neetu, Mona, Dhruv, and Shivam, their sister Prabhita, and her daughter Priyanka, were found hanging in a circular formation. Prabhita was hanging a little away from the group. The mother's 77-year-old Narayani Devi was found dead on the floor in the adjacent room. Alright, so Dhruv and Shivam were 15-year-olds, both of them. The oldest was Bhavnesh at 50 from the group of boys. So it's pretty much an entire family, which is pretty crazy. So from 77-year-old to the youngest being 15. The deaths initially suspected to be case of murder because of tied limbs, blindfolds, and gagged mouths, baffled the investigators after they discovered 11 diaries scribbled with notes detailing the situation. Based on diary entries entries, the policeman suspected it to be a case of a ritual gone wrong, leading to what could be called a mass suicide. The police said the diaries were dictated by Lalit, who believed the spirit of his father, Bhopal Singh, who died in 2007, was communicating with him and instructing him to perform banyan tree worship for the betterment of the family. A question that has perplexed many is how did the family members, including 15 and 25-year-olds, agree to tie a noose around their neck and believe they would survive the alleged ritual? That is, think about that. This guy is saying he is talking through his father. They would write in diaries about what needs to be done. So what would happen is we're probably gonna get into it a little bit later, but it's pretty hectic if you think about it. 25-year-old and 15-year-old educated individuals are just agreeing to this. But anyways, more history about the Chandwat family. So the move to Delhi. The Chandwat family, originally from Rajasthan, stayed in Haryana's Tohana for over a decade before moving to Delhi in 1989 to 1990. Bhopal Singh, who died in 2007, was the husband of Naryani Devi. The 77-year-old was a financially secure man with farmlands and cattle to rear. He sold the land and bought a plot in Burari, where he moved in with his wife and youngest son, Lalit. Bhopal Singh's only surviving son, Dinesh Singh Chandwat, a building contractor in Chittorgarh, said he and Bhavnesh did not shift to Delhi at the time because of their roots in Rajasthan. Quote, our entire family was in Rajasthan and in around Sawa village. We did not want to cut ties. Also, I liked open spaces, something which Delhi did not have. Bhavnesh and his wife came along and we thought we would set up business together. End quote. He said Mr. Dinesh spent 8 years in Saudi Arabia from 1978 to 86 as a manager in a sales firm. Visibly irritated over being called a member of the Bhatia family in news reports, Mr. Dinesh stressed his surname is Chandwat. We are all Chandwats. My mother was a Bhatia from Punjab, and when his parents stayed there for a few years after their marriage, my father came to be known as Bhatia Sahib, a title which would stay with him for years, he said, adding that his sister's Prabhita was married to Harinder Bhatia alias Hira, and therefore her and Priyanka's surname remained Bhatia. Bhopal Singh was called Daddy by everyone. One close to him was a man who commanded respect from everyone. Helpful neighbors. Quote, he would not even shout. His eyes were enough to let us know what we should not do, Mr. Dinesh recalled. He used to drink and eat non-veggie food. In fact, he used to cook delicious mutton dishes, but we never drank together. Whenever I visited Delhi, he used to leave a bottle of whiskey in my room for me and Bhavnesh to drink. Why not Lalit? Oh, he was a teetotaler, said Mr. Dinesh. Bhopal and Naryani Devi had earned the affection of their neighbors too. Considered me their daughter. One second. Mummy Naryani Devi and Daddy Bhopal Singh considered me their daughter. I used to tie a rakhi to Bhavnesh and Lalit said Rita Sharma, a retired government official who lives right opposite the house of the Chandwa family. So Rakhi is pretty much, it's like an Indian tradition. It's like where you have a sister who ties a bracelet around her brothers to always protect them, and it goes, the brother protects the sister. It's like a dated tradition. It still goes on today. Anyways, when her house was being constructed in 1991, Miss Sharma recalled, quote, they, Bhopal and Naryani, used to supervise the workers and even provided them with water and tea at regular intervals. End quote. The couple even took of Miss Sharma's 1-year-old son, Arnav. When the Sharmas moved into their house in 1992, from changing Arnav's nappies to feeding him to making him sleep, they took charge. He practically stayed with them in the initial years. That is what Miss Sharma was saying. Miss Sharma said she never had to make pickle in the last 26 years because Naryani had already had the stock ready to go. In 1993, Bhavnesh, his wife, and little Neetu came to Delhi from Rajasthan after Bhopal summoned both his sons home. Quote, I did not go because I met with an accident in 1992 and was on bed for about 12 months. My work in Rajasthan was always prospering, and quote, Mr. Dinesh said, which is the other brother. That is why he did not go. In mid-1990s, Bhopal's daughter Prabhita also came to stay with him in Delhi. Ms. Sharma claimed that Prabhita's husband, Harinder Bhatia, was an alcoholic, and his family did not treat her well. After Prabhita's husband's death, we did not think she should be happy at his house. Our father told us to bring her back, provide the best education to Priyanka, which is Prabhita's name, so Priyanka goes by Prabhita, and make her a successful individual. Sorry, Priyanka is the daughter, Prabhita is the mother. Anyways, on to the second oldest son, Lalit, and his challenges, which is pretty much, this story is centered around him. He's like the main character in this situation. Lalit's challenges. Lalit, who is at the center of the tragedy, was a rather complex character. Called Uncle by youngsters, he was funny, reserved, responsible, and authoritative all at once. He was the only earning member when the Chandwa family moved to Delhi. Chandra Prakash Mehta, a resident of Tohana and Lalit's best friend since 1989, recalled that his friend was no stranger to challenges. Both of them studied medicine at a private college in Hisar. Lalit was a year senior in inter-college, but he could not take exams in the junior year because he met with an accident. He had to repeat the year in the senior year during examinations. He fell ill again and had to drop out, said his best friend Mr. Mehta. After Lalit moved to Delhi, the two remained close friends, visiting each other regularly. Mr. Mehta remembered sitting for hours into the night with Lalit and talking about their friends from college. Quote, Lalit joked a lot. He was probably the funniest in our group, but he was a no-nonsense man, and he never compromised on principles. End quote. Lalit started working at a plywood shop in Shatara in the mid-1990s, and around 10 years ago, he opened his own shop in Burari. In February 2002, he got married to Tina, and 3 years later, their son Shivam was born. In 2004, a major incident shook Lalit's life. This was actually his second injury. So the first one was he fell off a motorcycle and injured his head and was bedridden in a hospital during his college years. So the second one, he was pushed under several sheets of plywood and and set on fire. They knew who did it, but the matter was resolved through a compromise. And in this situation, what happened is that Lalit lost his voice in the incident, and things began to change in Lalit's life in February 2007 after his father died of respiratory illness. So he hits his head in college, gets injured, and then a couple years later gets under attack by some employees and loses his voice. Next, the death that changed it all. Miss Sharma said the whole family was devastated and a priest was called for a prayer for 10 days after the death of Bhopal. Quote, one of those 10 days we were all sitting and listening to the prayers when Lalit suddenly started chanting. His voice came back and everybody said, quote, Daddy has returned, as in, that is what, end quote, that is what. So they're pretty much saying he got his dad's voice in a way, like his dad's talking through him. Or it's because of his father. This was perhaps the beginning of the end, said the neighbors. Naresh Yadav, who lives a few houses away and was a regular customer at Lalit's shop, recalled a conversation with him in 2008. Quote, I asked him how he regained his voice, and he said his father came in his dream and asked him to perform a puja, which is a prayer. End quote. He said, adding that Lalit never mentioned such dreams about his father again. Miss Sharma said Lalit and Bhavnesh, his children, used to call her for prayers, which started soon after Bhopal's death. Every night around 9 p.m., they would sit together and pray for 15 to 30 minutes. The kids used to tell me, it's time for our grandfather to come. That is what she said. That during the prayers, Lalit sat in the front. Over the years, he had taken the place of Bhopal Singh in the family. That is like mental illness right there, in a way. So he pretty much thinks well, anyways. Lifestyle changes. The Chandwas also adopted a lifestyle change. They stopped eating and cooking non-veggie food. Bhavnesh stopped drinking at home. The prayers became a regular affair. The number of shops increased from 1 to 3. Lalit's plywood shop, Bhavnesh's grocery shop, and the third one they were setting up together. So did the floors of the house. The first mention of Bhopal Singh in Lalit's diary is made on September 7, 2007, wherein the notes ask the family to keep his black and white photo in front of them and remember him. Pray that you get rid of your old habits, end quote, read the September note in the diary. The diaries thereon are filled with instructions in a strict, almost scolding tone for all the family members to follow. They dictated the daily routine of the members, including their eating habits and mundane activities for financial and general betterment of the family. The notes appear to have a major bearing on all of the members of the family live their lives. Lalit's employee Ahmed Ali, who had been working with him for the last 6 years, said the man often brought his father into confirmations. Quote, he would mention Bhopal to show how one should be a good person, end quote, Ali said. The week before the incident, Lalit was not going to the shop much. Ali said he was not keeping well and was spending most of his time sleeping at home. Unable to wrap his head around the deaths and the alleged reason behind them, Ali said he also always saw his employer as a kind of trustworthy person who went out of his way to help others. Quote, I was getting married in December 2016, a month after demonetization. Lalit used to stand in the queues outside ATMs at 3 a.m. because I needed cash, end quote. So they had diaries in which Lalit Lalit would say what to do in the diaries every single day, such as, Shifam's been on his phone too much, and you guys need to take care of this stuff, or it's not going to be well for Lalit and Tina, Tina is Lalit's wife. And the thing was, Lalit was telling that he would speak as Bhopal Singh to the family, and they would journal it, like the girls would journal it, writing it down, like what they need to do every single day, what needs to happen financially, and stuff like that. That is kind of scary to think about, because these girls are educated, they're not just brainwashed or anything. They were educated people, they had knowledge. Anyways, a close-knit family. Naryani Devi's daughter-in-law Savita and Tina fitted the stereotype of able homemakers. They woke up early, cooked for the family, and took care of the children and elders, and were polite and well-behaved with everyone they met. Savita did not seem very educated. Tina, on the other hand, was well-read and worldly, but both of them adhered to whatever Naryani Devi said Preet Kaur Man, another neighbor who knew the Chandwa family for over 20 years. Side note, Tina actually had a degree in sociology. Miss Mann recalled the thoughtful nature of Savita and Tina with an anecdote. Quote, a few months ago, the wife of one of their workers broke her leg. The Chandwats kept the woman at their house, and both the Bobbies, aka says both Bobbies is pretty much another word for daughter-in-law. So Savita and Tina took care of the injured worker. Oh yeah, and also in the diaries, it was Savita needs to take care of the kitchen, and the neighbors even noted why is Savita always in the kitchen? It's because in the diary through Bhopal Singh, it was said that she needs to take care of the kitchen, she needs to fit her role. She's not doing a good job right now. She needs to keep staying in there. Anyways, easygoing Bhavnish, the eldest son. Bhavnish was much more communicative than his younger brother, said Miss Sharma. His grocery store was an ada for people from all walks of life to come chit-chat, and he would entertain them all with a warm smile. Bhavnish's daughter Neetu was a constant support for him, as she used to sit with him at his shop and manage the finances. Her uncle Dinesh said as he stood by her father like a rock. Anyway, the neighbors said that they were more shocked by Neetu's death. She was a very confident and bubbly girl, said Amrik Singh Man, Miss Man's husband. She knew though she was the one who broke the news of the recent shootout in Burari to all the neighbors. We do not understand how she got influenced into participating in such an exercise, said Mr. Mann. Neetu had completed class XII from DAP Public School and pursued her bachelor's and master's degree in commerce through correspondence, Mr. Mehta and Neetu said. And her younger sister, Maneka, used to visit Tohana and stay at their house. Neetu was pursuing her master's from a lovely professional university, and the center for examination was near Tohana. Maneka, on the other hand, was a quiet person for whom her studies mattered the most. She had completed her BSc from Bachelor of Science from Delhi University and wanted to pursue a master's in forensic science. Quote, Maneka did not open up to people much. She would go to her class, come back home, and keep to her books mostly, end quote, recalled Ms. Sharma. See, these people were educated. They just weren't, completely brainwashed to start. They actually knew outside. But anyways, the lively teenagers, like Maneka, Shivam, and Dhruv, two were bright students, always scored well in their exams. They were fond of motorbikes and cars, which the family did not possess. Their friend Jutin recalled that the two followed a set routine and studied for at least 2 hours before going out to play at night. Quote, we used to play cricket and go cycling almost every day, but for some reason they did not come to play in the last week of June, end quote, said Jutton, the 15-year-old. Jutton said both Dhruv and Shivam were extremely God-fearing for their age. On Sundays they used to worship the sun by offering water. Boys our age do not usually do that, end quote. The two teenagers had no access to laptops and mobile phones. Their friend said, adding that both of them could only use a computer at their house and that two under surveillance by someone older. They were not allowed to use mobile phones. They would sometimes ask me for mine, but Lalit had instructed me not to give it to them. Ali said their uncle, Mr. Dinesh, remembered how the boys were fond of riding his two-wheeler. Quote, we have learned from Uncle, please let us ride it, they used to tell him. A teacher at their school for Virendra public school said the boys were in the same class and that they had the same set of friends. They were extremely bright students, very active in extracurricular activities. They hardly missed school. The tutor at home, Jatin and his brother Aditya, who's 11, were students of Pravita. She used to take tuitions at home in the evening for students up to class VII. I'm not too sure what nomen normal that is, but if you'd like, leave it in the comments. Quote, she was a tough teacher, but a good one. She would scold us if we did not do our homework. She would also complain to her parents, said Jatin. As for their part-time teacher, Priyanka, who used to teach them during her off days on weekends, Jatin and Aditya sang in chorus. Pinku D was the best, aka Pinku Priyanka D, meaning sister, was the best. Priyanka, her neighbors, Miss Man said, was a private person. She was not loud like her cousin neither as quiet as Manenka. Priyanka was somewhere in the middle who liked to live her life in a controlled way. Miss Man, who attended Priyanka's engagement on June 17, said the woman requested her not to post pictures on Facebook and tag her as she did not want people to know yet. At CPA Global, where Priyanka was working since 2012, her senior said she was exemplary at her work and had won many trophies and certificates. Her managers recalled that while she was cordial with everyone in the office, she only had 2 to 3 friends who she used to interact with. In fact, nobody at work knew that she was even engaged. Only one of her friends was aware, but even she was not invited. Priyanka used to participate in regular office events, but not the ones that stretched till late night, she added. Not one of the family members gave Mr. Dinesh a hint of what was going on inside the house. Though he is yet to come to terms with the tragedy, he said he could think of only one explanation for the secrecy. Quote, they knew I did not believe in anything supernatural. They knew if they told me, I would have stopped them at any cost. End quote. That is the end of the article. Nonetheless, I think that is some serious mental health issues with Lalit for not getting treated properly over in India. They often ignore mental health over there, and that is something that needs to be talked about more, and also changes need to be made in that situation, because 11 people ended up killing themselves through this, right? And it's just like, I don't know what to say, except for I feel bad for how it went down, especially for the children, right? Because it's like 2 15-year-old boys who had a bright future ahead of them. The same with the females in this family. They all were very well educated, good paying jobs, engaged, about to start a new family, and that stuff happens. It's been going on for 11 years too, right? As soon as the death of Bhopal Singh happened is when a couple months after, Lalit started talking through him and directing the family through that. because the girls used to write down in their journals about what Lalit was saying. So anyways, it's scary, to think that this might not be the only, like somebody else right now might be suffering with something like this, and you never know until it's too late. So anyways, I hope you guys like this true crime story. Kind of very sad. If you want to see more, leave a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Take care of yourselves. I wish you guys the best out there. Thank you for tuning in and watching or listening to another video.